Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Let us learn about the anatomy of eyeball in this video. Eye is one of the most important sense organs in our system. It visually connects an individual to the outside world. Its main function is vision or seeing. Light from the object of regard enters the eye, passes through all the structures in a straight axis, forms an inverted image of the object when it falls on the back part of the eye, called retina, equivalent to a camera film. Retina will convert the light image into electrophysiological impulses and transmit it to the brain, where the image is interpreted. This is called the process of vision. The adult eyeball is on an average 24 millimeters from front part to the back part of it. It is not a true sphere because of the bulge of the cornea at the front. It sits in the bony orbit. The bones of the orbit are thick and strong, protecting the eye from injury. There are several holes or fissures in the orbit, notably in the posterior part through which pass the optic nerve and major blood vessels. The orbit also contains the lacrimal gland in the upper temporal region. This gland can provide large amounts of tears when needed, for example when there is a foreign body on the cornea or as an emotional response. The tears which are normally present to keep the cornea moist and clear mainly come from glands in the eyelids. The eyeball is cushioned by a fatty tissue in the orbit. It is attached chiefly by 6 muscles. The extraocular muscles, which hold the eyeball and control eye movements. Now we can see the front part of the eye. As we see the front view of the eye, we can appreciate the following structures, namely upper and lower eyelids, which help in protecting and in keeping the eye in moist state by its blinking mechanism. Lateral and medial canthal area is the junctional area of upper and lower eyelids. Eyelashes are present at the upper and lower lid margins. Sclera is the white of the eye. It is the main outer coat of the eye. Covering the front part of the sclera as well as the inner surface of the eyelids is a thin membrane called the conjunctiva. At the front of each eye is a disc of clear tissue, the cornea. This is not seen in the photograph on the left because it is transparent, but it is clearly shown in the picture on the right, slightly curved and shown as pale blue. Behind the clear cornea is the iris, with a circular hole in its center. The hole is the pupil. The iris is seen clearly in the video on the left. Because the cornea is clear, the pupil appears black. The sclera and the iris are opaque. They do not allow light to pass through them. Light enters the eye through the clear transparent cornea and then passes through the pupil. Cross-section of the eye. To understand each structure in detail, we take the cross-sectional view of the eyeball. This picture highlights the entire structure of the eye. Let us learn more details of the structure of each part. This structure is called cornea. The cornea is the most significant refractive structure of the eye, providing 2/3 of the eye's optical power. After the precorneal tear film, the cornea is the first ocular structure that incident light passes through. The cornea behaves as a converging or a positive-powered lens, converging the incident light rays through the pupil towards the retina. Corneal refractive power is attributable to its deep elliptical shape. and the relatively large difference between its refractive index, which is 1.376, and that of air, which is 1. The cornea is composed of 5 layers from anterior to posterior. These are epithelium, made up of 5 layers of cells of ectodermal origin. Bowman's layer is a cellular thin layer of mesodermal origin. Stroma is regularly arranged collagen fibers continuous with the sclera of mesodermal origin. Decimate's membrane is acellular thin mesodermal origin. Endothelium is single layer of cells of mesodermal origin. The cornea is transparent because the stromal collagen fibers, which comprise 90% of the cornea, are arranged very regularly. Fibrils within a layer that is lamella of the stroma or parallel. The endothelium controls corneal thickness by regulating the water content of the cornea. If the cornea swells, its transparency decreases. As the cornea proper is avascular, its nutrients are supplied through the tears, aqueous humor and limbal blood vessels. This structure is called sclera. It is the tough, white, fibrous shell of the eyeball. Despite having the same origin as the transparent corneal stroma, that is mesoderm, the sclera is white. This is due to the irregular arrangement of the collagen fibers and differences in their density between inner and outer layers. The outer layer is less dense, unlike the cornea. There are no sharp distinctions between the layers of the sclera. While the sclera is usually white, it can appear bluish in young people due to thinness and yellowish in older people due to fat deposition. The layers of the sclera. From outside to inside, our episclera contains many elastic fibers, which are loosely packed collagen fibers and blood vessels passing through. Sclerostroma, connective tissue layer like corneal stroma, consists of dense collagen fibers but no elastic fibers. Lamina fusca, also called epic choroid since it is adjacent to the outer choroid, contains dense collagen fibers, melanocytes, and pigment granules. This structure is called uvea. Uvea is the layer beneath the sclera, beginning anteriorly with the iris and extending over the remainder of the eyeball. It consists of 3 portions: the iris, ciliary body, and choroid. Although it is regarded as a continuous tissue, the 3 sections have different functions. Iris. The ring-like iris located behind the cornea is a truncated cone of muscles. Its function is to control the size of the pupil, the central opening in the iris. Its thinnest part, the iris root, is attached to the anterior aspect of the ciliary body. Its thickest part is found approximately 2/3 of the way to the pupil, where the iris is about 1 mm thick. Usually the temporal side of the iris is wider than the nasal side, resulting in nasal decentration of the pupil. The iris color is determined by the amount of pigment present on and in the most posterior layers of the iris. When there is little pigment, the iris appears blue. With increasing quantities of pigment present, the iris may appear green, brown, or even black with the maximum amount. The iris contains 2 muscles, the sphincter, which constricts the pupil, and the dilator, which dilates or enlarges the pupil. The sphincter is innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system and the dilator by the sympathetic nervous system. The balance between the nerve impulses to the two iris muscles is responsible for the pupillary reflexes. Ciliary body. The ciliary body is a spongy tissue located behind the corneal limbus and at the root of the iris. Its posterior aspect is a pars plana, a flat, almost featureless area. The finger-like ciliary processes collectively form the pars plicata to which are attached the suspensory ligaments. The latter are attached to and locate and control, that is in accommodation, the crystalline lens. The muscles of the ciliary body are oriented longitudinally, circularly, and radially. They are innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system. The capillaries in the pars plicata produce aqueous humor. Choroid. The choroid extends from the ciliary body, at the ora serrata, where the retina ends, to the optic nerve. It is composed mainly of blood vessels, and acts in the maintenance of the outer layers of the retina. The choroid also contains many pigment cells, stopping light which might otherwise come through the sclera from outside, or be reflected from the sclera after passing through the retina. Crystalline lens. This transparent structure is called crystalline lens. The crystalline lens situated immediately behind the iris is unequally biconvex. The crystalline lens provides the other one-third of the refractive power of the eye. At the core of the lens is the nucleus, which is surrounded by the lens cortex. The lens capsule is an envelope in which the crystalline lens is suspended. Posterior eyeball. The posterior part of the eyeball is the space bounded from the front by the posterior surface of the lens capsule. That is, the lens zonules and the posterior part of the ciliary body pars plicata and pars plana. The retina and the optic disc at the back. It is largely filled with the vitreous gel body made up of vitreous humor. Immediately behind the posterior surface of the crystalline lens is a small volume of aqueous, the posterior aqueous, which fills the space between the lens and the depression in the anterior surface of the vitreous body. Vitreous humor is a clear gel-like substance that fills the bulk of the posterior chamber of the eye. Unlike the aqueous humor, the vitreous is not constantly produced and replaced. Consequently, debris such as blood cells accumulates in the vitreous body. The obesity, translucency, or refractive effects of this debris cast shadows and alters light incident on the retina. These alterations give rise to the phenomenon of floaters, which may appear as strings, discrete spots or coalesced areas which move under the influence of gravity and eye movements. The volume of vitreous humor accounts for approximately 80% of the internal volume of the eyeball. Vitreous humor adjacent to the retina, that is the outermost vitreous, as more condensed than its innermost counterpart. Functions of the vitreous humor includes maintenance of intraocular pressure and physical support for the retina. The retina is thin, transparent structure lining most of the inner surface of the posterior surface of eyeball. This is made up of 10 layers, namely: first layer named pigment epithelium, which absorbs stray or scattered light. Second layer is the receptor layer, which is made up of rods and cones, converts light energy to electrical activity. Third layer, which is external limiting membrane and provides supportive function. Fourth layer is outer nuclear layer, which consists of nuclei of rods and cones which controls metabolism and function. Fifth layer is named as outer plexiform layer, which has connections synapses between the terminations of the receptors and fibers, dendrites from the cells. In the next layer, bipolar and amacrine cells. Here is general one-to-one relationship between cones and bipolar cells. However, many rods can connect to one bipolar cell. Sixth layer is inner nuclear layer, which consists of cell bodies of bipolar cells, amacrine cells, and horizontal cells. These cells not only connect the receptors, but also each other. Their interactions are an important first stage in the processing of information from the receptors. This layer also contains some supportive cells and also tiny capillaries from the retinal vessels. Seventh layer is inner plexiform layer, which has connections between the bipolar cells and cells in the next layer. Ganglion cell layer is the eighth layer of retina. These can collect messages from many bipolar cells. A single ganglion can transmit information about color, patterns of light, and shade and movement. Ninth layer is the nerve fiber layer. Nerves from the ganglion cells run along the inner surface of retina to the optic disc where they form the optic nerve. Last layer is named as internal limiting membrane. This is the inner limit of retina and outer limit of vitreous body. Optic nerve. This is the structure formed by entire nerve fiber layer. This layer connects eye to brain. This region lacks both rods and cones. Where the nerve leaves the eyeball, it is called optic nerve head. For more optometry related content, subscribe my channel.